It's on downstairs. Kathy's sitting in air conditioning, and every time I go downstairs, I complain how cold it is, and the air conditioning downstairs is at 79 degrees. No, 78, I think we set it at.
I don't know how you do it.
All right, Krista, I think it's
Okay.
7:30.
Yes, 1:30.
Miss Chris.
Go ahead.
In
Oh, wait, do I
compliance,
start?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the July 9th, 2020 meeting of the East Amwell Township Committee. Krista, do you want to call things to order?
In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, this is a regular scheduled meeting. Ugh. Open Public Meeting Act, this is a regular scheduled meeting pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 2nd, 2020, with the meeting notice published in the Hunterdon County Democrat issue of January 9th, 2020. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Times of Trenton, Star Ledger, Courier News, Post on the Post Board, and Township website of the Township Clerk's office on July.
Okay, would we all stand to pledge to the flag, which I have behind me here? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Krista, do you want to do the agenda review?
Yes, just on item under special discussion D, city net online payments, we're going to defer that until August meeting, and then we're going to postpone the Friday night in the park till the 17th. But you can announce that when you do the announcements.
Yep. Okay. So announcements. Our summer playground has officially started on July 6th. It started a week late, but that's because under Governor Murphy's executive orders, we were not allowed to start the summer playground until July 6th. It will run through July 24th from 9 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. This year, we had a great turnout. We have nearly 100 registered children for the summer playground. The East Amwell Park and Rec Committee's Friday night in the park, which was scheduled for tomorrow night, is instead going to be held on next Friday, July 17th from 5 p.m. until dusk. We postponed it because they're calling for very nasty weather tomorrow. And we waited as long as we could to actually pull the trigger because we really didn't want to postpone it, but we have no choice. The forecast continues to show nasty weather tomorrow. So we're hoping for better weather a week from tomorrow. I greatly appreciate all the effort that Allison has put into getting this up and running. We really wanted to do the Friday nights in the park this year. We're looking to do 3, one in July, one in August, one in September, because the feedback we get is the residents want it. They want these types of events. We will have it outdoors at Clawson Park. People can socially distance. There's plenty of room. We're going to have a DJ, and we are going to have the East Amwell's Got Talent show. So to the extent that you or anyone you know out there has a particular talent and would like to come and perform for their fellow residents, you now have an extra week to step up to the plate. And if you'd like to perform, there is an email address in the agenda. It's recreation@eastamwelltownship.com, and it's going to be a fun evening for all. Your estimated property tax bills were mailed out on June 30th. Your property tax bills have to be paid by August 10th. If you don't pay by August 10th, there will be interest charged commencing August 1st. And your remaining tax bill will arrive in October. If you have any questions about this, there's a number in the agenda you can call, 908-782-5209. The Hunterdon County Utilities Authority will hold a hazardous waste collection on Saturday, July 18th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Hunterdon County Complex on Route 12. There is a number on the agenda if you want more detail. The playground at Clausen Park has reopened. We had been wanting to reopen that for some time. Finally, Governor Murphy's executive orders were such that we could open the playground. We had that fenced off for the last few months. So that was good news. We know there were a lot of residents who wanted us to reopen the playground. Our local Girl Scout troop, 8380, is working with the Amwell Valley Fire Company on a community project for the Girl Scouts Silver Award. It's called Emergency Animal Preparedness. And the Girl Scouts will be supplying decals for residents and pet emergency rescue kits to the fire department. These decals will be available soon at various locations around town. Please help the Girl Scouts in their endeavors by taking a quick survey on our township website. This will help them understand how many and what kind of pets the East Amwell residents have. This is an important project for the Girl Scouts, so your participation is greatly appreciated. In fact, one of our former township committee members, Kevin Ostrander, his daughter is playing an important role with respect to this project, so please do what you can to help. There are a few other items that I'd like to mention because I have come to realize, now having been mayor of East Amwell for almost a year and a half, the value of our volunteers, the value of our employees, the value of our fire and rescue squads. And so I'd like to take a few minutes each meeting and just acknowledge people who are going over and above the call of duty. I'd like to start with the spring cleanup. We had our spring cleanup earlier in June. We thought it was really important to have it this year because we anticipated that people during the shelter in place would be cleaning. And just based on the volume of recycles we saw, particularly shredding at the recycle depot each month, we thought it was really important to have the spring cleanup, and we did. And it was very successful. I want to take a minute and thank our the various people who participated in that. First, from the Recreation Committee, or sorry, the Recycling Committee, I'd like to thank Allison Castellano, Sue Cadlick, Will Harrison, Chantel Napoleon, and Mark Gunn. They all showed up on the spring cleanup day and helped with various aspects of the spring cleanup. I'd like to thank my running mate, Mark Castellano, who, along with myself, we both helped work the garbage trucks, the Packers. I'd like to thank Jason Silverthorne, Dave Barrick, and Ryan Duckworth from our DPW, who also worked the Packers and the dumpsters. Our rescue squad, the Amwell Valley Ambulance Corps, they provided 16 volunteers, that's 16 volunteers, who handled a massive amount of donations that came in for Goodwill and for their own fundraiser. They were working their butts off all day. And we greatly appreciate that sort of turnout. 16 volunteers, that was terrific. They also loaned us their storage shed because we got more items than the tractor trailer that came to take the items could handle. So the rescue squad loaned us their storage facility until Goodwill could get another tractor trailer out to get the additional items. That's how successful it was. So I'd really like to thank those folks who worked very, very hard at the spring cleanup. It was a very successful event, and I think the residents really appreciated the fact that we did it. Many other municipalities canceled theirs. The recycling depot was on July 4th. I was skeptical that we would get very many people coming on July 4th, notwithstanding that we advertised that we would be open, but we had a very good turnout on the 4th of July. And I'd like to thank all the members of the recycling committee. Will Harrison, who is the chair, Allison Castellano, who is the vice chair, Mark Gunn, who has a wonderful sense of humor and is just a joy to work with at the recycling depot, Sue Cadlick, who also has a wonderful sense of humor and is an absolute joy to work with, Chantel Napoleon, who will sit in that hot trailer for hours, literally sorting through all kinds of recycles. And it does get awfully hot in that trailer in the hot weather. And Tom Rue, who likewise will spend hours in the hot trailer packing styrofoam so that we could send it off to recycling. I've actually, except for 3 months when Mark and I were campaigning on weekends, I've worked the recycling depot over the course of the last year, and have come to realize just how hard the people on the recycling committee work and how important their work is for the township. And I just want to acknowledge that effort. They're a victim of their own success because the recycling is growing. We're getting more people, more types of recycling, which obviously means more work for the recycling committee. But they do that work. They do it with a smile. They never complain. They do it with enthusiasm. And we're very lucky to have that great group of volunteers. Now on to another happy topic, which is concerts and movies. Our freeholders decided that in light of the fact that the 4-H fair was canceled this year, they wanted to do what they can to restore some sense of normalcy. So they are going to have outdoor concerts and outdoor movies at the 4-H fairgrounds, or what are also known as the South County Fairgrounds, during the rest of the summer and into the early fall. They are going to have 3 concerts, one on July 30th, one on August 6th, one on August 13th. Those are all Thursdays. You will stay in your car. It'll be a drive-in concert. Performing on July 30th is Jake's Rock and Country Band. August 6th is Asbury Fever, which is, I'm told, a spectacular Bruce Springsteen tribute band. And finally, on August 13th, the 100th Symphony. And then there will be 2 movies. On Saturday, September 26th, there will be the movie Playing with Fire. And then on October 10th, they will be playing the 1968 classic Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I actually saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in a drive-in movie theater when I was a kid. So that is near and dear to my heart. It'll be neat to see it again in a drive-in movie theater many years later. So I am looking forward to that. I really want to thank our freeholders, particularly Sean Van Doren, who has been making great efforts throughout this COVID crisis to do what he can to enhance the lives of the residents of Hunterdon County. And I greatly appreciate the freeholders doing this. And I encourage everyone to attend. There is no admission charge. There will be food vendors. So come and enjoy the concerts and the movies. With that, I will turn it over to our CFO, Margaret. She has several things that she would like to go over with us this evening.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Great. Oops. My screen just went funky. All right. My first item of business is that we have a chapter 159. Our Clean Communities grant came in, so therefore we have to pass a resolution to add this to the revenue and the appropriation section of the budget.
So could I have a motion to add the Clean Community Grant, Clean Communities Grant to our budget?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay.
Okay. The next item I have is I'm going to be canceling all our reserve for preliminary expenses out of the capital account. This was something that the auditors had suggested I do. After they went through the whole audit, they had, a few of the suggestions were to get rid of the preliminary expenses and also either spend down or close out two very old capital ordinances we have. So I'm going to try to spend them down before we cancel them out. But this resolution is to cancel 5 preliminary expenses that were set up before I got here.
Yeah, none of those expenses is particularly large. I think the largest is 5,000. The two largest are going into our open space trust fund. So none of these is monumental. Could I have a motion to approve canceling out these capital reserves that are no longer active or valid?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Okay, so moved.
Okay, and the last item on my list is that the audit's been completed. Hopefully everyone got their copies. And the most important thing is to look on page 37. There are no recommendations. We have a clean audit.
Could I have a motion to accept the 2020 audit?
So moved.
I'll second.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one comment on page 16, Margaret, under serial bonds, the first one.
Mhm.
It says it was from 2010, but it says starting March 1st, 2020 through March 1st, 2021. Should that be March 1st, 2010 through March 1st, 2021?
Let me find page 16 first. Serial bonds, let me check here. 2010 serial principal installment. Actually, I think what they're referring to for that period of time is the interest rate. So I do think that is, the dates are correct.
Okay.
Okay. But if you want, I will double check with them.
Yeah, it just seemed like the boundary was 1 year, but it was a longer
Yeah.
term. So that may be correct.
I will check.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Before we leave the 2020 audit, I just want to thank Margaret for the extraordinary efforts that she's put forth, particularly over the last few months under very difficult circumstances. The fact that we get a clean audit since Margaret has taken over is a commentary on her efforts, but her efforts go far beyond a clean audit. I've worked closely with Margaret now for a while and have come to realize her value to the township. And I just want to thank Margaret for all the efforts, as I said, particularly over the last few months. It's been a pleasure working with her. I have been able to get her to smile once in a while. She won't admit it, but I do get that. It's just a joy working with Margaret. She's very responsive. She's very thorough, and it's just been a pleasure. And I just want to commend her for taking us through another successful audit. So thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, let's go on to, do you have anything else, Margaret?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Summertime's slow for me.
That's not bad. That's not bad, actually. Okay, so item 8 on the agenda, special discussion. As Krista said, we're not going to discuss item D this evening. We're going to do some more work on that. But what that discussion was supposed to be is we are trying to roll out a way for residents to pay bills online. So they don't have to come to the township committee, or I'm sorry, to the municipal building or mail it in. They could simply go online, click and pay. So we are working on that, and we hope to have something ready to roll out for our August meeting. We just decided it was a bit premature tonight to get into it. There's still work being done. So we will put that on the agenda for August and be prepared to have a presentation for the township committee and the residents about that program. So let's go through the other 3 items. Item A, as you recall, in June, we passed the noise ordinance that applies to basically gas operating landscaping equipment, construction, and engine braking. For the first 2, we impose a quiet period or a curfew from 10 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning during the week, and from 10 o'clock at night until 8 in the morning on the weekends. And the engine braking, that is basically 24/7. It applies to unnecessary engine braking. We were, or I was informed earlier this week, or I'm sorry, earlier last week by our attorney that the Ridge at Backbrook has filed a lawsuit challenging that ordinance. So we are in the process of addressing that. Since it is ongoing, our counsel suggested that we not get into any sort of detailed discussion, but I did want to make the residents aware that there is a second lawsuit now filed by the Ridge at Backbrook against East Amwell Township, this time regarding our noise ordinance. Item B on the agenda, which is a thank you to John Allen. I think probably most, if not all of you on this call know John Allen. He wears a number of hats, but as is particular this evening, he is our township historian. When Jim Davidson left, I reached out to John and asked him if he would take that position, and he kindly agreed to do so. I've known John for a few years now. In addition to being one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, he is terrific as an historian. He has worked very hard in his position as our township historian. I know that because my wife is the contact person for the Historical Society for questions. And when she gets questions regarding the history of East Amwell, she refers them to John, and John gives the person submitting the question a prompt and very thorough answer. He also wrote a very terrific article, which is in this month's VIP on page 5, called Rebecca Horton's Missing Grave. It is a fascinating article, and it's even more fascinating to talk to John about it, which I did this past weekend. But I recommend that you read it. It's not that long, and it's very interesting. But I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge the great efforts of John for the township and to thank him. He's really stepped up to the plate, and we greatly appreciate that. I also wanted to give a brief update regarding the project we have going on regarding making farming or keeping farming viable in East Amwell Township. Tamara Lee, who is a longtime resident and a member of our planning board, is spearheading it. Mike Mills, who is a local farmer, has a farm on Wurtsville Road, is working closely with TAM. Mark Castellano and I are also involved. The project is moving along well. We're making great progress. We've been interviewing farmers. TAM has been interviewing other people from the state, from the county. This is a very large project, but we're learning a lot as we go along. And I think it will be an effort that's very much worthwhile. But I do want to thank TAM for all the work she's putting into this. She has a massive number of hours into this, and the more she does, it's become all consuming for her. I could tell she's thoroughly enjoying this project, and I look forward to seeing it finish, which will hopefully be the end of this year or by early next year. And then we will be making recommendations to the township and the planning board as to things we can do to keep farming viable in East Stanwell. Next is item 9 on the agenda, standing committee reports. First, we have a resolution to approve a Green Acres project agreement. As you recall, we are very far along in putting a property that we refer to as the Wurtsville Industries property into preservation. As part of that project, East Amwell got a $350,000 grant from Green Acres. In order to perfect that grant, we need to sign the project agreement. A copy of it was in the Google Drive. I read it. I don't know, it was about 20 pages long. It seemed pretty innocuous to me. Catherine Fullerton, who heads our Farmland and Open Space Committee, told me that this is standard, this agreement, that the township has signed these agreements a number of times in the past, that there was nothing out of the ordinary about it. So I wanted to bring it before the Township Committee tonight for your approval so that I can execute that agreement on behalf of the township and perfect our $350,000 Green Acres grant, which will go help pay for the Wurtsville Industries property. So with that, could I have a motion to approve the execution of the Green Acres project agreement?
I'll second.
Are there any questions or comments?
Who moved it?
Mark did.
Mark
Okay,
I second.
and Chris seconded.
thank you.
Gotcha.
Any questions or comments?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Then all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. The Historical Preservation Committee informed me this week that one of their members, Mary Van Horn, resigned. She was spending 5 months out of the year in Florida, or she is spending 5 months out of the year in Florida, and has other things going on, and has decided that she really can't participate to the extent she would like to on the HPC. And so she tendered her resignation. So I'd like a motion to accept Mary Van Horn's resignation with regrets.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. On to item 10 of the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. We're going to approve tonight the June 11th, or we're going to bring up for approval the June 11th, 2020 regular minutes and the executive session minutes. I gave Krista some relatively insignificant comments to both. They were in the Google Drive. So could I have a motion to approve the June 11th, 2020 regular minutes?
I'll move the regular minutes.
I'll second.
Are there any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Terrific. So we have approved those. June 11th, 2020 executive session minutes. Could I have a motion to approve those?
We'll move the executive minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. We have no consent agenda items this evening. We have no public hearings or.
You have to open to the public.
Did I jump over that? Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. You work so hard on this cheat sheet and I just get it wrong every meeting. Okay, so item 11 on the agenda is open to the public. You could discuss anything, whether or not it's on the agenda. We do have a strict 10-minute limit for this open public session. We ask you to respect that. So with that, could I have a motion to open to the public?
We'll move the open to the public.
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Francis?
I'm sorry?
Francis raised her hand.
Go ahead, Francis.
Okay, Francis Gavigan, 123 Wurtsville Road, Ringo's, because that's part of the open space thing, the open public meeting thing. I asked questions last month about posting or making available draft minutes so that the public could review them before the meeting, and the attorney was going to get back to you or us. And since he does not appear to be on the call, what is the status of making minutes available so that the people either on a Zoom call or wherever with the building closed have an opportunity to see what you're approving and comment if that's relevant?
Francis, if you could mute us when you're not speaking, because when you go off mute, we're getting a buzzing sound from you. If you could hit mute and I'll answer. The minutes are township committee minutes. They are not open for public debate or public comment that would be reflected in the minutes. If any member of the public would like to comment on the minutes, you can do so in writing, or after they are posted, you could comment during an open public session at the next meeting. So that's the answer to your question. Our attorney couldn't be on tonight because he had a conflict in his schedule. That's why he's not with us this evening. Anyone else from the public would like to speak?
Allison?
Hi. I just wanted to
Name and-
reiterate.
Just state your name
I'm
and
sorry,
address for the
Alison
record.
Castellano, 9 Pole Court. I just wanted to reiterate for the depot, the recycling depot, that we cannot take plastic, the Trex plastic right now. And I'd also like to say right now, we can't take any more TerraCycle. We can't process it. The Trex, well, it's not that we can't, the Trex company, with the Trex, we drop it off en masse. We get so much of it, it gets dropped off en masse at certain supermarkets, and they're just not taking it. Okay, we can't force them to do it. They're going to start doing it again if they want to do it, whenever they want to do it. So until we can move it on to the next stage, and they're the people that transport it to Trex, and it goes on its forward motion, we can't take any more. We just can't take it into the building now. And this sort of goes to the same for TerraCycle too, because I can't move it. We don't even know if the school is going to allow it all back in the school in September. It might not. And that's going to cause a problem too. So honestly, I'd like for TerraCycle now not to be taken as well, because we just can't physically do anything with it. Not saying don't collect it and keep it if you possibly can, but at the moment we cannot take it. So I really would like to ask, because when we turn up for the depot on that Saturday, there's always, people obviously come to the depot before the depot hours. They come to dump their own stuff in the dumpsters before the depot hours, and that's fine. But people are always leaving Trex plastic, TerraCycle and everything else. And we turn it away at the actual depot, but you know, if we're not there, there's no one to turn it away. So I'm just asking the public, please don't leave it. People tend to leave it by the dumpsters for us. We just can't do anything with it right now. So, you know, we have to keep our big shed clear of all that stuff, and we can't do that. So just asking everyone not to bring it right now, and we will let everybody know when we can start taking it again and moving it on.
Anybody else? Joe?
You have to take yourself off mute, Joe. You're on mute.
How
There he
about-
goes.
How's that? All right, good.
All right, just say your name and address, Joe.
Sure, thanks, Krista. Joe Wolfgang, 26 Zion Road. Hope I'm probably gonna use my entire 10 minutes here, but going back in time a little bit to the October 2018 Township Committee meeting, which I attended back when we could attend. Mr. Sousa from, I think it's Princeton Hydro, the subject came up where Mayor Wolf was, created quite a bit of controversy, accusing that Mr. Sousa was awarded a contract that was no bid, and that clearly there was some dirty business going on there. And he gave us a lot of information about how he could smell these things and how he suspected there was funny business, and Sousa's wife was on planning board, and therefore there was obviously illegal activities that had happened. And I spoke out at that meeting and suggested that if you feel there's illegal activities, then you should pursue them legally, you know, through a court, wherever, however you do it. You're a lawyer, go after it. But you're making allegations, you're making accusations here and going after somebody and accusing them of things. And one day it's going to end up in a lawsuit against the town, because this is what happens when you poke at people and you say things that are not true about them in public, and you cause them to be seen negatively, and when it's not accurate, and eventually they get mad. And I pointed out that there's normally in a lot of situations in our life, there's some supervision where you can't do these things. And I mentioned at work where HR would call you in for anger management. And I mentioned hockey, that I play hockey, and you wouldn't do these things. You might want to get into a fight on the rink, but you wouldn't, because there's a ref and there's penalties involved. And if you're a lawyer, you wouldn't do these things in court because there's a judge, and the judge runs the court and makes you follow the rules. Even if you're a lawyer, you have to follow the rules. And I mentioned how the town was sued when I was on planning board years ago because an employee didn't have their contract renewed, and how it was really, really a bad experience for me personally being named on that lawsuit, and how it cost the town's insurance company close to $500,000 to settle that suit. And getting sued is not pretty. So Mr. Wolf responded afterwards and gave us his story about Tiny in college, and how him and Tiny went into a dorm room and basically vandalized the dorm room of some bullies, to teach them a lesson, sprayed spray foam in there, which I think you'd consider to be a carcinogenic material, vandalized the dorm room in a college, and thought that he did the right thing, and that was the right way to handle that situation. And then the next meeting, we discussed this a little bit, and Mr. Wolf said, you know, Joe, that was how things were handled back then. The college really didn't handle it the way they could have, so I had to handle it my way. And I thought, it says, Mr. Wolf says, I know better than other people. I know how to handle these things, even if there's rules, even if there's proper procedures and policies and administration. I'm going to do it my way, and it's going to be loud, it's going to be in your face, and I'm going to teach somebody a lesson. So this goes back to obviously many years ago. We're not kids anymore, but here we are, adults and professionals, and Rick Wolf was proudly telling us a story of how he handled things, and also how he kept doing, I'd say, handled the situation with Mr. Sousa in a similar way, by just taking advantage of his power as the assistant mayor at that point, and accusing him of many different things. So if we jump forward to the future now, we know what happened with the golf course, and there's a lawsuit. And it's interesting, I saw it was on the agenda tonight, but I guess we're somehow just not talking about it. And it really seems to be the case, is it's just not discussed. I mean, this is something that should really be transparent. The golf course is, I think, the biggest business in our town. It was the biggest taxpayer for many years. And you know, obviously, if they're not paying taxes, somebody's got to make up that money, and that's everybody on this phone call tonight. The residents will have to make up for taxes that the Ridge doesn't pay. So they might be jerks because they wanted to fly helicopters in. Nobody was keen about that. And the town as a whole did a great job of investigating how we could fight that and how we could push back. Although in the end it was didn't work out. But in the process, I think once again, we saw that Rick Wolf decided to go all out on these people. And there was a lawsuit. We know that. And we know that the lawsuit was decided. I'm not a lawyer, so my terms might not be perfect, but there was a judgment from the court that came out earlier this year. And I'm sure Mr. Wolf has said several times that he would put all the documents on the website, on the township website for everybody to see. And the whole first 20 minutes of this meeting, I was poking through the website trying to find them. They're very hard to find. They're under documents and you have to keep digging down through township committee documents. And you can find a lot of the documents that have been going back and forth. And the town, my interpretation of the document is we have now appealed the court's ruling. But what I don't see on our website is probably the most important document of all, which is the judge's ruling, how the judge interpreted the township's comments and especially Mayor Wolf's comments against the Ridge. And the wording, I think everybody needs to hear this. If I was on the township committee, I mean, you got to share the good, you got to share the bad with the residents of this town. You have to be honest with the people of this town. You can't just tell them about the Girl Scouts and the cool things that we're doing and the fun things. That's all well and good. But I think you need to also share what's happening with the business of the town. And the business of the town has to do with this lawsuit. And it's this, this has happened once, will it happen again? And what the judge said, the comments plainly suggested Wolf harbored personal animosity or prejudice against the Ridge. Just among other wording here, most disturbingly, Wolf's multiple references to potential improprieties in the approval process, blah, 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 the suggestion that, so they found, the wording is most disturbingly. And once again, Wolf's multiple references to potential improprieties in the approval process, the suggestion that the approvers to build improper payoffs, backroom deals. Does that sound familiar? It's exactly what Rick Wolf suggested happened with Sousa with the contract. He's doing it again and again. And it's going to set us up for more lawsuits, folks, and it costs money. And what I'm concerned about here are two things. One is that, well, it's going to happen again. It's going to cost the town money. It's going to cost the town image. We're going to lose businesses. We'll lose vendors. People won't want to deal with us. Also, what I'm really concerned about is none of the other members of the township committee are speaking out against this. You guys are just sitting there. I mean, you're sitting there. You're not saying a damn thing. You're not questioning it. You're not trying to reel it in. You're going along for the ride. And I actually saw what I call a whiff of rebellion or questioning of Rick's approach when, and I'm going to say it, it was pretty impressive. But after Tim Matthews got chewed out back in March, and he said, basically, actually, he said to Rick, please, I'm human, treat me like a human here. And he was so beat up by Rick, he had to plead for some leniency. And the motion was tabled. And then Rick came back at him again afterwards. And it was Chris Sobieski who came in and stepped in and said, Rick, we settled this. I mean, Chris saw that Tim was getting beat up. And somebody spoke up against Rick Wolf and said, stop it. Stop treating East Alamo residents like dirt. Tim Matthews has been on township committee for 6 years. Maybe he doesn't do anything right. And I think Tim's a really nice guy. And I'd say he's a friend. And maybe he wasn't doing everything right that night, but there's no need for the mayor of this town to step on somebody and get them to the point where they have to plead to be treated like a human. So I'm glad to see somebody on township committee finally stood up and said to Rick, stop it. But why doesn't anybody else do it? What's the matter? Are you guys afraid of Rick? I mean, I'm doing this.
Okay, Joe, you hit your 10 minutes.
No, I didn't, ma'am. I'm at 8 minutes and 40 seconds. I'm timing it. I started a timer. So I've been
Okay.
on 20, but thanks for checking, Krista. The other thing I'm concerned about is, the state is in terrible financial shape. And the state's going to be in budget crisis, the counties and the towns are going to be in budget crisis. I would expect, I have one more minute. I would expect we start seeing more consolidation of the towns, where towns, East Amwell and West Amwell might become Amwell at some point, just because we're going to start running out of tax money. And I wonder if other towns are going to want to merge or join services with our town, knowing that our township committee acts like this to our businesses, to our residents, and we get sued, and we have to have judges tell us, the judge, in this case, we don't have a judge that tells Rick Wolf what to do in township committee. The Ridge Golf Course took the judge to us, and the judge said that many of Rick's comments amounted to biased attacks of a personal nature. Wolf harbored personal animosity or prejudice, and most disturbingly, his multiple references to potential improprieties, blah, 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 were not right. So, I'm almost up. Rick's gonna call me a liar. He attacks people. He's gonna try to distract you from what I just said by making up names and calling me things. But these are the facts. This is the truth. That's 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else?
Anyone else, Krista?
I don't see anyone.
Move we
Okay.
close.
Could I have a motion to close to the public?
I move we close.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Can I just make a comment regarding Mr. Wolfgang's comments? I could.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Joe, I appreciate you, bringing up the history and things. I just wish you'd get the terminology and wording correct. So I don't think I pleaded for mercy or anything like that. I just would hope that if you're going to quote me, that you'd go back and get the exact wording.
Any other comments? Okay. I'm going to make a few comments here. I'm not going to, as Mr. Wolfgang said, personally attack him. When I considered running for Township Committee in 2016, I was told by a number of longtime residents to be prepared for personal attacks. That's the way the EADA ran elections. And it turned out to be true. During that campaign, I was attacked personally. You can go back and look at the campaign literature. They said I can't be trusted, but yet none of them knew me. So how did they know I can or cannot be trusted? They said that I'll raise our taxes. That was nonsensical. I'm a tax lawyer. I make my living out of reducing taxes, not raising taxes. So that was just ridiculous. After I won, they continued to come after me. He was an illegal candidate. We're going to get him removed from the Township Committee. He illegally moved into his house without the proper certificate of occupancy. Of course, none of that was true. And of course, they were just not true. They were just flat out lies. And they never pursued them. Certain members of the EADA have been nasty to my wife. One particular member has been nasty to my running mate's wife. But in any event, 2018 comes along and we become a majority on the Township Committee. And the strategy shifted to, let's try to undermine anything that the majority is trying to accomplish. And they flat out lied about everything that we were trying to accomplish. When we decided to chip seal Mr. Wolfgang's road, Zion Road, he came in and said it was unnecessary to chip seal it, that there was only one crack and it was in front of his house when the road was loaded with cracks. And when Mr. Matthews and I showed up at the Township Committee meeting with pictures, having walked the road and taken pictures showing all these cracks, Mr. Wolfgang had no response to that. There were issues with cyclists where Mr. Wolfgang came in and made statements that simply weren't true. And when we proved them untrue, Mr. Wolfgang stormed out of the meeting. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not going to stand still for people coming to a Township Committee meeting and lying. I'm not going to sit there when people level personal attacks. And I'm certainly not going to sit there when somebody or a business tries to abuse the people of East Amwell Township. You know, so Mr. Wolfgang talks about the litigation. You're right, Mr. Wolfgang, you're not a lawyer. And if you consult with a lawyer, you will find out that we are limited on what we can say about this ongoing litigation. So we're not holding back information from the public. We're following the advice of our counsel. We're trying to be as open as we can about the litigation. The litigation on the agenda tonight was the lawsuit with respect to the noise ordinance, and that was discussed. The documents regarding the lawsuit are posted on the website. I'm sorry you're having a hard time finding them. I just checked. I didn't have a difficult time finding them. If there are documents that aren't there that you think should be posted, please let us know. It's possible that we inadvertently failed to post something, but the instructions were to post everything that I forwarded. But I have to tell you that Krista has a lot on her plate. But the intention was to post everything that we can post with the advice of our counsel. We're not hiding anything from anybody. The lawsuit, there was never a trial. The reason we're appealing, or a reason we're appealing, is because the judge's statements about what I've said, many of them are just flat out wrong. I never said that. And I don't make false statements about people. Everything I said about Sousa, everything I said about backroom deals, about the Ridge, I have proof for. Absolute proof. And if you want to sit down and go through statement by statement, and you want to see the proof, you send me a list of statements, Mr. Wolfgang, and I'll present you with the proof. And if I'm making all these false statements against Sousa, against the Ridge at Backbrook, why aren't they suing me for libel and slander? Explain that one. So this notion that somehow we have an out-of-control bully on the township committee, no. Do we have an out-of-control bully in the township? Yes. It's called the EADA. And it's not all the EADA. It's a relatively small group of people, yourself included, who think that you're going to silence me, that you're going to stop me from trying to achieve things to better this town by painting me as some sort of bully. That's not going to happen. I don't live anywhere near the Ridge. The Ridge could fly helicopters in and out all day. It will not impact me one iota. The Ridge could have PGA tournaments out the wazoo. It will not impact me one iota. The Ridge can do all sorts of things. They won't impact me. I'm on the other end of East Amwell Township. So why am I spending hundreds of hours dealing with the helistop, dealing with the certain other matters, literally hundreds of hours? Because that's what I was elected to do. I am a public servant. I spend as much time interacting with the residents as I can. I get as much information as I can. I decide what the residents want, and I do my best to carry it out. The residents made it very clear they didn't want a helistop. And I fought that vigorously. Who created this monster? Mr. Wolfgang and his colleagues on the EADA created this monster. Who does the Ridge at Backbrook turn to when they want help before the court? The EADA. Check the records. The Ridge is teaming with the EADA on these issues. It's all on the record. So the Ridge is, or the EADA is trying to turn this into, oh, Wolf is a bully. No, Wolf is doing exactly what he was elected to do. By the way, Mr. Wolfgang, take a look at the results of the last election. Take a look at the district in which the Ridge at Backbrook is located. Your candidate lives in that district. I don't. I got more than twice as many votes as she did. By the way, let the record show that Mr. Wolfgang just disconnected from the video conference. So the real bullies here aren't on the township committee. The real bullies are Mr. Wolfgang and some of his colleagues. And I won't even get into some of the things that he prefaced at the beginning because none of them were true. But I'm not going to sit here and waste time debating that. Go back and watch the video of the Sousa hearing and see what the truth is. So I can't really say anything more about the litigation, but I'm not going to sit here and let Mr. Wolfgang disparage the township committee or disparage me. And I'm not going to let the EADA bully me or belittle my wife or belittle my running mate's wife. I'm just not going to stand still for that. And all I can say is that when the EADA sends you little snippets of videos, watch the whole video, not the little snippet they send you. See exactly what's going on. With that, I will move on to the next item on the agenda. Just give me 1 second here to get my dance card back up. Okay. Item 12 on the agenda, we have no consent agenda items. 13, we have no ordinances we're introducing or no public hearings. Special committee reports, the summer playground. As I mentioned earlier, the summer playground turned out to be significantly more popular than we anticipated this year. We have nearly 100 children enrolled. So we needed to hire an additional volunteer. We also had to replace one of our, well, I shouldn't say hire a different volunteer, hire a different counselor, I'm sorry. We also had to replace one of our counselors. So the names and the resumes of the two people, the one that we're hiring and, well, the two that we're hiring, one as a replacement and one as the additional counselor, we're in the Google Drive. We need a resolution to approve the slate of summer playground directors and the volunteers, including the two that we're looking to hire. So could I have I need a motion for that, correct, Krista?
Yeah, I forgot to put it on there. Yeah.
Could I have a motion to approve our summer playground directors and volunteers?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments?
No, it's going great. I know, I go every day.
I thought you were a little old for that, Pete.
No, I'm actually getting younger, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Unfinished business. Update regarding the municipal operations. I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight and update the residents on where we stand in terms of our municipal operations. We reopened the municipal building this past Monday. Sorry, this past Monday. What I mean by that is our employees are back. They're working their normal work schedules. We have social distancing measures in place. We are open to the public. We have installed glass partitions over the counters to protect both the public and our employees. It was something we were planning on doing before the coronavirus. We decided to do it now because of the coronavirus, but we were considering it before the coronavirus for security reasons, because we live in crazy times. So we wanted to protect our employees from somebody coming over the counter. So these glass partitions serve two purposes: security and to protect the employees with respect to the coronavirus. So if you go in, you're sliding documents under a slot. You can see the employees, but like I said, there is a glass barrier. There is a way to speak through the glass barrier. It has a diffuser, so neither party is breathing on the other. And notwithstanding that we're open to the public, we're still encouraging the public to do as much of their business by email, phone, or the Dropbox as you can. We'd really rather not have members of the public coming in and out of the municipal building unless you really have to. We understand that some people will have to come in July to deal with their farmland assessment forms. But that will not be conducted the way it has in the past. You would be dealing with Mary Ann, with her on the other side of the glass barrier. It will not be the same kind of sit down that it's been in the past. And if there are issues that can be handled by phone, email, or through the Dropbox, I'm strongly encouraging you to do that for your own protection and the protection of our employees. We have started live committee meetings, or we will shortly, I should say. What I call our small committees, the committees that generally get no members of the public or occasionally one or two, we'll be able to have live meetings each month in our courtroom, assuming it's available. So Agricultural Advisory Committee, for example, Farmland and Open Space Preservation Committee, Historic Preservation Committee, etc., they can have live meetings. Our three larger committees, the Township Committee, the Planning Board, and the Board of Health, the Board of Health will make its own decisions. The Township Committee, we're going to try to have a live meeting in August, which will be open to the public. What we are going to try to do is offer a reservation system so you can reserve a slot. If you don't reserve a slot and you choose to come the night of the meeting, if we have space, we'll accommodate you. If we don't and you haven't reserved, we can't let you in. We will have some mechanisms so that people can watch the meeting and comment from home, but it likely will not be Zoom. We're thinking about saying to people, you can watch the meeting on live stream, and if you want to comment during the open public session, there'll be a number that you can call into and express your comments. We will clear this all with our township attorney, but I've had a preliminary discussion with him, and this is the direction that other municipalities are going in. In fact, we're lagging a bit behind a number of other municipalities. Our planning board is more complicated because we have many more members and often three professionals, a lawyer, an engineer, and a planner. We're still going to try to do live meetings, but that's much more complicated. So that may not be something that we do until September, we'll see. But the goal would be to have a live township committee meeting in August. We'll give that a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the next week to 10 days. The next item on the agenda in 15B is an update regarding the drainage ditch on Route 79 at our border with West Amwell. This is Laura Olson's property. Laura came to a township committee meeting last year to talk to us about the situation on her property. The concrete drainage pipe for the Ringo's Village terminates basically halfway across her property, and the water flows through an open ditch from halfway across her property to the back brook. That drainage ditch has proved problematic for Laura for a number of reasons, largely having to do with the NJDOT's failure to properly service it. As part of installing a new bridge over the back brook on 179, I think they want to make a bad situation even worse for Laura. They want to take the guardrail and extend it even further down her property. So in order to come in and service the drainage ditch, they're going to have to come through her driveway and across her property, across her lawn, which I know is going to be a nightmare. Having the guardrail run another 60 or 70 feet down her property is not going to help the aesthetics of her property. To make a long story short, Mark Castellano and I went out and looked at this. I went out and looked at it twice. I brought Mark with me because I wanted him to see it. And we believe, and our engineer believes, there's a better way to do this that will solve part of the problem with respect to the open ditch and will eliminate the need to extend the guardrail. That will go a long way to alleviating the concerns, the legitimate concerns she has. And she's been pushing this issue with NJDOT on the open ditch for literally 30 years and getting nowhere. My own view is we have one bite at the apple to get this thing fixed, because when they replace the bridge, you know, they're going to tear up that whole area. So that's our opportunity to get this fixed. If we don't get it fixed, then it's never going to get fixed. Our engineer has had conversations with NJDOT about this, and basically NJDOT has been patting him on the head and saying, yeah, we'll deal with it when we actually do the engineering. What I'd like to do is formalize this a bit. What I'd like to do is put together either a letter or a resolution for this township committee to adopt next month, asking the NJDOT to address this issue and making certain suggestions as to how it should be addressed. I want the formal correspondence, and I want it to go not only to the representative at the NJDOT that deals with municipalities, but as far up the chain as we could get it. Because she has the right to have this issue addressed. It's a legitimate issue and it's been ongoing for 30 years, and there have been promises made, and she showed me the correspondence and nothing's been done. So I'm not looking for us to do anything tonight. I do plan on bringing something to the committee for the August meeting, but what I would like you to do, Tim, Chris, and Pete, is please take a drive out to Laura's house. It's the last one on the right before you hit the bridge at the border on 179. You can pull into her driveway. She's fine with that. You won't miss the ditch. It's huge. And just bear in mind when you're looking at that, they want to extend the guardrail from where it is now to her driveway. And just get out and walk around and look at it. So you have some sense of why I think this really needs to be addressed. This, I think, is a very legitimate concern, and I'd like to do what we can to help her.
Yeah, I mean, I think she had some traction. I don't know, it was with a senator, and then obviously he didn't get reelected. So everything falls by the wayside, and then she's got to start almost the whole process again. So figuring that she's so close to this bridge project, a $5 million project, I mean, all they have to do is come down a little, because they're going to be all over her property as it is. And there could be minor corrections that would solve all her issues. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the only reason it's a concern. Plus the guardrail.
Yeah.
The guardrail is absolutely ridiculous. They would extend it so it literally comes to her mailbox in front of her property. So it's like looking in front of your property, having a steel guardrail
Oh, yeah.
taking over 30 of your
Pleasant
property.
sight. Yeah. Can either of you send me her address offline? I don't want to. Okay, thanks. I don't want to broadcast it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, no cost to our township other than a little bit of time and effort.
That's correct. We did have the engineer have some email correspondence. I thought it would be more productive to have that correspondence come from an engineer, because it was more technical in nature. But it's not getting the traction that I had hoped, which is why I'd like the township committee to do something more formal to NJDOT. I'm hoping that if we do something more formal, they'll pay attention and something will be done to help Laura. but they plan on doing the engineering drawings, or at least as of a couple of months ago, they planned on doing the engineering drawings, in their words, late winter. I don't know if they're still on that schedule, but you know, I want to get our input in sooner rather than later, because once those engineering drawings are done, they're going to say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. The drawings are done and have been approved. So I want to get this into the hopper before those drawings get up and running. Chris, did you want to say something?
Is this the same bridge with the with the turtle crossing?
Yes,
Okay, all right. Now I know what you're talking about. All right.
yes. It's the
Gotta
last house
associate
on the
it.
right. It's the last house on
Yeah.
the right before that bridge. It's
I
the
got
last
you, yeah.
house
I
in
know
the
where it is.
township on that
Okay.
side.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll put this on the agenda for August. I'll get something to the township committee to look at in advance of the meeting. I'm going to consult with Bill and a few others to see whether it should be in the form of a letter from all of us, or in the form of a resolution, or some other form. So I will get back to you on that with something to look at. The new business, item 16. This is a painful process. As you know, last year we got a grant from New Jersey to do part of what we call the Linvale Road Improvement Project. We asked for a grant of X dollars. We got half of that, which gave us the money to do half of that project. What I want to bring before the committee tonight for approval is the grant application for the other half. If we don't get this grant, then we're going to have to move forward with just part of the Linvale Road Improvement Project, because if we don't use our existing grant money by next year, we lose it. But it would be more efficient for us to do the whole thing. It would be more cost effective for us to do the whole thing. So we're going to apply for this grant for the other half that we didn't get last year. Hopefully get it this year, and then be able to finish the project all at once. I'm not wildly optimistic that we're going to get this grant. I'm not wildly optimistic that there are going to be any grants. The state had weekly and now bi-weekly calls for the mayors of Hunterdon, Sussex, and Warren County, starting in the early stages of the shelter in place. And one message that is coming through in these calls is don't count on grants or aid going forward, given where the budget is. Fortunately, East Amwell's in good shape because we don't get much state aid. But we're going to try to get this grant for Linvale Road, and we'll see what happens. So with that, could I have a motion to approve submitting the grant for the second half of the Linvale Road Improvement Project?
We'll move the grant.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
I'd like to just, in full disclosure, I live right there, so obviously this affects my my home, but I'm in full support of it. I just want that on the record.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We are now at item 17, which is our second open to the public session. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
Move we open to the public.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public like to speak? Krista, do you see any hands?
No.
Seeing no one coming forward, could I have a motion to close to the public?
I'll move.
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're on to item 18, bills of the evening. I'd like to move the bills of the evening.
I'll second. Wait, was that a motion?
No, could I have a motion to,
Okay, I'll move the bills of the evening.
I'll second.
any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. There are certain materials in the Google Drive, what we call administrative reports. Obviously, construction has been slow the last few months. I do want to try to schedule a meeting in the near future with Delaware Township to talk about how we're going to deploy their police in East Amwell. Right now, they are writing tickets in the village. But there are other roads that we'd like them to patrol, particularly right now, Wartsville, Lindbergh, and Linvale, where we've had a lot of speeding complaints. We are going to put out our new speed recorders. We're putting one on Lindbergh, one on Wartsville by the school. Ultimately, we will put one on Linvale. They will not show the drivers how fast they're going because we think that takes away from the accuracy. So they'll just record speed and we'll get some hard statistics. But we are looking to redeploy. I plan on re-engaging with the mayor of Raritan Township about doing a shared service for their police on the other end of East Amwell. I'm not sure where that's going to go because as I understand it, a lot of police officers are now taking retirement, including early retirement. So when I spoke with the mayor of Raritan before the coronavirus, he was interested in the shared service because they had excess capacity in Raritan. I don't know if they still have excess capacity. So I will reach out to Mayor Cool, who I actually know pretty well. He's a very nice guy, and see if he is still interested in doing some sort of shared service. I also want to get a little more detail from our tax collector about where we stand this year versus last year in terms of collections. Last time I spoke with her about this a few weeks ago, we were doing well. But I want to make sure that that's still the case in terms of our property tax collection. If there are no questions about the administrative reports or the correspondence, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for joining this evening. I hope you can make it to next Friday's Friday night in the park. Take care and be well. Thank you.
Likewise.
Take care.
Thank
guys.
you.
All
Have a
right.
good night, everyone.
Good night.
Adios.